Despite making it to the second week of all four majors, including an Australian Open final and Wimbledon semi-final, 2024 was considered a down year for Daniil Medvedev considering the high standards that he's set for himself in recent years, and the former world number one struggles have carried over into the beginning of 2025, falling to a second round defeat at the Australian Open and now losing to the world number 92 Matteo Berlucci in Rotterdam. So some are now understandably asking the question, is Daniil Medvedev's time at the top of the men's game coming to an end? For the majority of the other players on tour, the Russian's results over the past 12 months or so would be considered a very solid achievement, but to put Daniil Medvedev's recent struggles into context, let's just take a moment to talk about his results since he broke through into the upper echelons of the men's game. Medvedev turned professional in 2014 and rose rapidly up the rankings, making his way up into the world's top 100 by the end of the 2016 season. He would claim his first big scalp in 2017, shocking the number 3 seeded Swiss Stanislas Wawrinka at Wimbledon, before claiming 2 ATP 250 titles and 1 ATP 500 title in 2018, to bring him within touching distance of the top 10 by the season's end. That momentum would continue into his breakout 2019 season, winning close to 74% of his matches in a year where he would claim his first 2 Masters 1000 titles in Cincinnati and Shanghai, as well as making his first major final at that year's US Open. The 2019 season cemented Daniil as a member of the world's top 10 and a name that nobody would want to see in their section of any draw moving forward. Over the course of the next 4 seasons, Daniil would claim 4 more Masters 1000 titles, clinch the deciding rubber in the Davis Cup, and win his first and only major title to date at the 2021 US Open, dashing Novak's hopes of becoming the first man since Rod Laver in 1969 to achieve the Grand Slam by winning all 4 majors in the same season. Daniil would then go on to rise to the very pinnacle of the men's game in February 2022 by becoming the world number 1. However, over the course of 2024, Daniil Medvedev's results began to dip after what was initially a promising start to the year that saw him take a 2-0 lead in the Australian Open final, only to be cruelly denied by a stunning comeback from the rising Italian star Jannik Sinner. Some have speculated that this heartbreaking loss, his 5th Grand Slam final defeat at this point, perhaps took the wind out of his sails as the Russian slumped to his first titleless season since all the way back in 2017. Ending the season on a down note, getting knocked out in the ATP finals at the round-robin stage, Daniil opted not to play any warm-up tournaments in preparation for this year's Australian Open, with his first round matchup against world number 418 ranked Jazzaddict Samrej being his first match in 2 months. Daniil was able to come through the match but was unconvincing, being pushed all the way to a 5th set by Samrej in the opening round. It'll be another 5-set battle in the next round, this time against the up-and-coming American teenager Leonard Tien, who was competing in only his 4th ever Grand Slam tournament. Daniil dug himself a hole, going down 2-0 before bringing it back to force a 5th set, but ultimately it wasn't enough as the teenager would prevail, dumping the 5th seed out of the second round, Daniil's earliest Aussie Open exit since 2018. Daniil would look to bounce back in Rotterdam, a tournament he won back in 2023, and the Russian would enter as one of the favourites, being the 2nd seed. However, Daniil would suffer another upset, this time against the number 92 ranked Italian Matteo Berlucci, who would tie the former world number 1 in knots, frustrating Daniil with his unorthodox style and unconventional shot choices. So, what is going wrong for Daniil Medvedev, and what does he need to focus on to get himself back up to his previous heights? Well, if we take a look at Medvedev's 2024 season, he suffered 19 main draw losses, not including any Laver Cup, Davis Cup or 6 Kings Slam matches, and of those defeats, 8 of them were either to Jannik Sinner or Carlos Alcaraz, so part of the equation could just be that 2 really special talents have emerged in recent years that have surpassed Daniil's level. However, there were also some shock defeats against the likes of Zhang and Davidovich Fokina, so maybe there are other factors at play. One of Daniil's biggest weapons during his most successful period was his big first serve. At his best, he was winning 69% of his overall service points and 87% of his service games. However, over the course of the past handful of seasons, these percentages have slipped, and in 2024 he won 64% of his overall service points and 80% of his overall service games, which is the difference between him being a top 10 server in the world previously to being in the bottom half of the top 100. Without this key weapon, Medvedev has had to battle harder in the rallies to earn his points, and he attributes this to the change in tennis balls.
now, even if I make a good return, there was like one or two where I cannot hit a better return, the ball stops through the air, so he has the time to make like a half volley or at least try to play the ball in the court. But I'm fighting with what I can, with the qualities I have.
This would certainly track with his decline in service points won, and this would also adversely affect him in the rallies. Previously, Medvedev would be able to absorb his opponent's power and use this to counterattack from the baseline, but the slower balls have meant that a lot of speed that was previously on the ball is scrubbed off before it arrives on Medvedev's end, meaning he is more reliant on generating his own power, which by his own admission he is less capable of than other players on the tour. There may also be tactical factors playing against him, with his success in the return games beginning to slowly decline, although Medvedev does still remain one of the more successful returners on tour. Medvedev continues to find success with his deep returning position, but as the balls have slowed in recent years, Medvedev doesn't have quite the same pace of ball to work with and can find his returns dropping shorter in the court, leaving him exposed to attacks from his opponents. Players have also begun to figure out that an effective counter to Daniil's deeper return position is the serve and volley, with the passing shot being an incredibly tough play from so far behind the baseline. So where does Medvedev go from here? While his results had dipped in recent times compared to his own high standards, Daniil is still ranked firmly within the world's top 10, and at 28 years of age he is still in his prime years. He is also still capable of making the latter stages of major tournaments. However, if he has aspirations of pushing himself back to the top of the sport, it has become apparent that changes need to be made, and his recent split with Gilles Simon as part of his coaching team does seem to indicate that Daniil has acknowledged that fact at least. With his serving concerns in mind, could Medvedev look to bring in a fresh set of eyes like a Goran Ivanisevic for example to try and regain some extra performance in this area? Also, could Daniil look to make some tactical switches, like taking the ball on earlier off his returns, or looking to approach the net more often? Daniil's net play frequency and success rate leaves something to be desired, so his reluctance is understandable, but considering his large frame and wingspan, this strategy could potentially bear fruit for the Russian. There are also motivational factors to bear in mind too. His second child was born just before this year's Australian Open, and Daniil's focus could be understandably more and more on his family now. Having been world number 1, won a Grand Slam title and ranking 6th full-time in career earnings, is his motivation to go and grind out victories tournament after tournament, year in and year out still there? It will certainly be interesting to see how the 2025 season unfolds for Medvedev and whether he can get back to competing for major titles. Can Daniil Medvedev bounce back from his rough start to the season? What changes, if any, do you think the Russian needs to make to get himself heading back in the right direction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you all for watching.